everybody. It's the first live stream of the week, so just like Danny, I'm going to gift some memberships. At the beginning of every week, I gift 5 memberships to try and match the generosity of so many of you. So thank you to everybody who supports this channel, particularly when the movie business is in the crapper. It's very helpful because, you know, I'm very reliant on what Hollywood puts out. Thank you, Garnet Fire. And they are not doing what they're supposed to right now. We'll see how Snow White goes down this weekend. It'll either be a great movie or it'll go down in flames. But either way, it'll certainly be something to talk about. So we have 3 great stories to discuss today. Please keep your questions and comments to the stories at hand. But then, of course, as always, at the end of the stream, you can ask me anything that you would like. We'll do our 10-minute Q&A. All right, everybody, I got lots and lots of pictures uploaded. It always takes me longer to upload the pictures than I anticipate, which is the main reason that I'm usually late to start these. I'm like, you know what? I think I need a little bit of this picture to just make this story pop all the more. So I think it makes the live streams more fun to have more media. So I think it goes well. All right. Garden Gamer, I'm glad you got a membership from me. That's great. That's awesome. And I saw some other people morph. My pleasure, everybody. Thanks, Wes. All righty now story number 1. Here we go. Story number 1. So many pictures uploaded. My goodness. Boop. Okay, so this was a headline that came out, I think, was it yesterday? Such a crazy headline. And that Colin Farrell is circling, he hasn't signed yet, he's circling Sergeant Rock. And as you might recall, this was the role that Daniel Craig was supposed to do for Luca Guadagnino. So let's discuss. So you can't talk about DC with having James Gunn there. Peter Safran's like, what about me? And we're like, what about you, Pete? Peter Safran, of course, is supposed to be the co-head of the studio, but I think, I think a lot of us feel that, the buck stops with James Gunn, and James Gunn is supposed to know better. James Gunn is the comic book fan. He's supposed to be one of us who's now in charge of a movie studio. So I think a lot of this stuff, people feel very reliant on that. Also, James Gunn has already personally laid the groundwork for Sergeant Rock coming into live action because, of course, he put him in Creature Commandos. I don't know how many of you watch Creature Commandos, but they had that Nazi killing robot flashback, and then he started out with he started out with Sergeant Rock's group with the Creature Commandos. Sorry, 1 second. I agree, Ben 10. Luca Guadagnino is on the wrong property. I think Titans would be a much better fit for Luca Guadagnino. But he's not doing it. He's doing this Sergeant Rock story for some reason. So James Gunn has really kind of laid the groundwork for Sergeant Rock. And, he's promised that animation and live action, and it's all going to be part of one world. And so I think maybe part of that appeals to him. And, of course, he's gotten none other than Luca Guadagnino to direct. And some of you have talked about, thanks for joining, welcome back, Matthew. Some of you have talked about the fact that Luca Guadagnino wants to change his MO. He doesn't always want to make the same type of movie. So he wants to try something a little bit different. And I would say Sergeant Rock sure is something different. However, the advice that I would give to Luca Guadagnino is that Luca Guadagnino brings value, and that people who like Luca Guadagnino's work would want to see what he does. But I think that people who like Luca Guadagnino's work have very little interest in Sergeant Rock. So I think that that's kind of like, it negates everything. You're like, well, the Luca Guadagnino fans aren't going to want to see this movie despite his involvement. And then Luca Guadagnino isn't going to excite the Sergeant Rock fans. So I feel like it's a little bit of a mess. Now, of course, Daniel Craig had been rumored to be wanting to join this. And it's interesting because, when James Gunn did his presentation to the press just a few weeks ago, he said that Daniel Craig was never in contention, and that was just a rumor. A rumor that nobody discredited until Daniel Craig decided not to do it. So I think there's nothing wrong with saying, I think instead of always calling everybody a liar, or like the internet is mischievous, I think it would just be better off to say, it just ended up not being a match for Daniel Craig, or Daniel Craig decided to do something else. But I think, and something else seems to be is Greta Gerwig's Narnia, which I think is actually a much better choice for Daniel Craig. I think Daniel Craig saved himself, and I hope the DC curse doesn't take down poor Luca Guadagnino. We'll see. All right, so now how did Colin Farrell get into all this? Well, he's just run the gamut of awards season, and it went really well for him. He first picked up, bam, the Golden Globe. Then right after that, just a week later, bam, oh darn it, bam, Critics' Choice. And then, just like a month or so after that, bam, SAG. He was on a beautiful winning streak. He's got 3 awards there: Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, and the SAG Award. That's right, I'm drunk with picture power, Mika. So he's looking pretty good right now. He could probably write his own ticket to a degree. I'm surprised that he would choose to write it with more DC, but I guess DC, you dance with the one who brung you, and DC, of course, is the one who did all this. That's right, Mystic. The Emmys probably next, but the Emmys aren't until frickin' September. And the Penguin's going to seem so old by then. I think the Emmys needs to get off of this old-time schedule they have. The Emmys goes with the old TV seasons. That's why it's in September at the start of television, what that used to be. But clearly that doesn't exist anymore. So I think I think that the Emmys should really go in the same cycle as everyone else, because it's very disorienting to see shows winning again, or there should be like everything wins all at once. I think that's just a better choice. But yeah, I mean, DC is the one who enabled this amazing run. So what does this mean though? Okay, so all of the trades, when they reported this, hey Jamie, were very careful to point out, and they said, look, the Gunverse and the Reevesverse are totally separate, and never shall the two meet. And you're like, it doesn't matter, they're going to meet in real life. I think it's still going to be very confusing to the general public, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I do want to say, I think even before we get to how fans and audiences are going to react to it, I think there's the very real question of what is it going to do to shooting schedules, right? So you've got the Batman Part 2. Now, obviously, Colin Farrell's Penguin isn't going to be a big character in that movie, but I think would it create any sort of delay with that kind of a scenario? Would maybe Colin Farrell want to focus just on doing Sergeant Rock and maybe not want to be in a Batman Part 2? So I think that's a little bit bizarre. And then, of course, everybody wants to know, is there going to be a Penguin Season 2? In fact, Colin Farrell was asked if there was going to be a Penguin Season 2, and he said, he didn't really feel one way or the other about the idea, which isn't a great answer. It was a big endeavor. James Gunn, when he was asked about a Penguin Season 2, even said, it's a lot of hours in the makeup chair. It's a really big commitment for Colin Farrell to do that. Although, do you see all these awards, Colin? Perhaps one more. I mean, I still feel like they don't need another season of the Penguin, and that they should go on and do other DC villains. But I mean, of course, the Penguin would still be part of that world, so it still kind of all fits together. But it just wouldn't require as big a commitment. But then here's the biggest problem. Despite all these other elements and all these awards, and that's that Colin Farrell, nobody wants to pay to see this guy. Let me get my arrow a place where you guys can all see it. Now, I've told you this story that back in the day when when Beyond the Trailer kind of had like a distribution deal, I pitched for a website that was owned by the company that I had a distribution deal with, that I wanted to do a video about the highs and lows of Colin Farrell's career. And this was early days for me. And, it was back when Colin Farrell did Total Recall. And this was turned down, this video, because they said, we don't want to make Colin Farrell upset. We don't want to point out that he's had lows. And I said, Colin Farrell knows he's had low points in his career. He's not an idiot. And by the way, he's one of the nicest people I've ever interviewed. He's a total gentleman. He's a wonderful person, even though he gave Jamie Lee Curtis COVID. The site wouldn't do the video, but then lo and behold, Total Recall ended up being yet another low point. I mean, everybody was so excited for the trailers, and then this thing just imploded. Because Colin Farrell, he just has no luck at all when it comes to movies. He's made some really great small films. He's a great actor's actor. I think that's one of the reasons he continues to work. And then every once in a while, he'll get something that kind of keeps him going. Like this Penguin thing just bought him another 20 years, or 10 years at least, for his career. And he does, as you said, that's right, Mika, he does smaller films like The Lobster. Those little things help him. But when he goes to big movies, he's briefly in Fantastic Beasts before Johnny Depp ended up taking over the role. But when you look at these things like Dumbo and The Gentleman, these things just don't do well. He's in a big, bold, beautiful journey with Margot Robbie. So we'll see how that ends up doing. But, DC has, I have to say, Colin Farrell, since perhaps he was cursed to begin with, maybe he canceled out the DC curse. And he's one of the few people along, I guess, the Reeves-verse so far doesn't seem to be cursed. Zoe Kravitz has a wonderful guest role or guest story arc on The Studio that's coming up with Seth Rogen. Robert Pattinson's actually about to have such a career surge. It's incredible with all the movies he has coming out, I think this year and next. And Colin Farrell. But now I guess maybe the Gunverse is what's going to take him down. But his box office is really, really poor. So if I were Luca Guadagnino or James Gunn, I'd say, I love you, but get away from my movie. I think that's a valid concern. But even beyond the bankability, I think this is just, I had said from day one that if James Gunn didn't do a clean reboot, like a clean break and start from scratch, it would forever haunt him. And it continues to be the case. It's just spiraling more and more out of control. And it's really hard to watch when it could have been avoided. So James Gunn insists that he can create something where he has his own movies, and then there's something called Elseworlds. And I think he's really dreaming that he thinks that's going to succeed. It's, of course, done well in comic books, but comic book readers are a different breed, and we're a smaller group. Casual audiences are just not going to have that kind of bandwidth. I just don't think they care enough. Look how much the multiverse is confused. Marvel couldn't even get away with this. Multiverse stories, everybody's like, what are you talking about? And it's really been a horrible problem for them. And again, it creates also the a la carte menu. The whole reason that Marvel is so successful and has become the blueprint for everybody else is that you had to watch every single Marvel project to be able to know what was going on. As soon as Disney Plus forced Marvel to go the a la carte menu itself, it was a disaster. If you tell Elseworld stories, that's basically saying you don't have to watch them. And or vice versa. If you prefer the Elseworld story, like the Reeves-verse, you don't have to watch the Gunn stuff, because again, never shall the two meet. Now, this is not just going to happen with Colin Farrell, so it's creating a lot of confusion, I think. Now, of course, there's Clayface, the Clayface movie, which Matt Reeves is producing, although that's not in Matt Reeves' Batman universe, but instead it's in James Gunn's Batman universe, for a Batman that has not been cast yet. What? Why would you go from a Reeves Penguin series to a Reeves Clayface movie, but they have separate Batmans? That's just absolutely ridiculous. All right, then Lobo. James Gunn's pushing Lobo real hard. It was Lobo's anniversary the other day or something, I guess, and he tweeted out how as soon as he got the job, I gotta say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but Jason Momoa was in there tweeting saying, dude, you gotta let me be Lobo. But I think that, Aquaman was like it was the only billion-dollar DC movie. Now, of course, it imploded as well with Aquaman 2, but Jason Momoa was relatively popular with the character. And I think that his Lobo is going to look almost exactly like his Aquaman, only in clown makeup. And I think a lot of people are going to wonder what the heck's going on, because they changed Aquaman to meet Jason Momoa instead of creating an Aquaman that was comics accurate. So I think that's going to be extremely confusing. And now I think some fans will be able to follow along. But still, even with fans, you're allowing them to sit some chapters out. But I think that with casuals are just going to be like, what are you doing here? Now, obviously, Colin Farrell, of course, does look very different. It is buried under a ton of prosthetics, but you can still tell it's him. It's still Colin Farrell, and we all very much are aware that it's Colin Farrell. I see a lot of you bringing up Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom. We will see how that turns out. So I think that this is a bad idea from every conceivable angle. I think that Colin Farrell does not, I think Sergeant Rock, okay, I'll go through why all the reasons this is a bad idea. Nobody's really interested in Sergeant Rock or World War II stories, I think, for that matter. I mean, I don't know how they're going to plus this to maybe have some more comic booky elements to it, but I think it's a really tough sell, particularly after we already did Captain America and that element. So I don't see how Sergeant Rock, a non-powered Captain America, is going to be successful. 2, Colin Farrell is not bankable. Colin Farrell cannot sell movie tickets. I don't care how great he is. He's wonderful. I think he's a great actor. I think he's a really wonderful, kind person. Doesn't matter. Nobody wants to pay to see the guy. Even The Penguin had low ratings as a show. It did okay for HBO, but it did not do well compared to it did well compared to most HBO and Max shows, but it wasn't at the level of The Last of Us or Game of Thrones. So and this is Batman, for Pete's sake. So I think Colin Farrell was a big part of that, I'm sorry to say. So, and those are the 2 reasons. And then the third reason is that it's just too confusing. It's just too confusing in terms of the fact of him being in both worlds and that they're not connected. I think people are like, oh yeah, that's Sergeant Rock played by Colin Farrell. He's the Penguin. Oh no, but not in this universe. And you're just going to be like, dude, it's too much. I mean, there are so many other options for you to spend your time these days. I just don't see people signing on for something like this. It's just too complex. All right, so what do you guys think? Questions and comments before we get to the next story of the day. Scores, I'm glad you made it, baby. Rashad says, I feel like I'm in the passenger seat and Gunn is driving to some weird off-road and I have to either just ride with it or tuck and roll. You know, I would add to, that's a great metaphor, Rashad, but I would add to that, okay, and that you're sitting in the passenger seat, but you have the map. And you're like, I can clearly see that you're supposed to go in this direction. You know, like anyone can see it. We all have the map. You know, and James Gunn's like, no, I swear, man, this is the best side trip ever. And you're like, I don't know, that last side trip didn't go so well. Gunner, Lanterns is supposed to be in the same universe as Superman, but the people who are making it say that they have no, they don't think that they're ever going to connect. You know, they certainly, that's not something that they're focused on. And you're like, how could you not be focused on it? Paris, I would love more Catwoman. I thought that Zoe Kravitz did a great job. I Don't Care Bear says it's such an unnecessarily complicated move. There are so many actors wanting to work. I couldn't agree more. Mr. Andrew says, Grace, who would you cast in Sergeant Rock? I wouldn't make Sergeant Rock. I don't care how good the script is. Some things I think, you know, there's only so many movies and shows that a franchise can release. You know, Marvel's having the same problem. Everybody's like, I want Wonder Woman. I want more Batman. I want Poison Ivy. I want Catwoman. You know, all these things that people are interested in. And then they're like, Sergeant Rock? Swamp Thing? And you're like, what? You know, like, there's just only so many things that can come out. Yeah, Ben 10, this thing's ready to go. You have Sophia getting out of Arkham and then Selena Kyle returning and they're half-sisters. That's right, Garnet Fire. Where's Gotham City Sirens? So much people are... I mean, Zatanna, Evie the Blue, I would put Zatanna actually in Gotham City Sirens. Let's see here. Ramsey says, do you think much of these random LA and animated DC live action and animated DC projects will materialize at all? I think that some of them will, you know, like Superman, Supergirl, Clayface. I think the Batman Part 2 is a pretty safe bet. Robert Pattinson's already talking about it like they're going to get ready to roll later this year. But I think those are really the only projects that you can count on. And that's a very odd start to a major franchise. You know, I think you're supposed to, I really don't think there's anything wrong with following the Marvel formula. You know, Marvel set up their core members of the Avengers with their solo films. And I don't see anything wrong with, you know, I think everybody felt that it should have been Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and then you bring them together for a Justice League movie. And I think that's pretty obvious. Thanks, Gunnar. That's a very sweet thing for you to say. Danny, that's a good point, that perhaps if James Gunn did cast his Batman, that would at least anchor his part of, you know, it just, I guess, especially because we only have one Batman and he's over in another space. CJ says, I don't get how this can streamline into something that general audiences will get into. In France, people are just so confused about all this mess. Sacre bleu! Oh, bonjour over there in France. I love France. It's interesting that, you know, Chris Christopher says that maybe Gunn doesn't know anybody with different tastes. You know, I think Gunn is very friend-centric. You know, he's very focused on the people he knows and enjoys working with. And I don't know how many of those people read comics, to be honest with you. A lot of them seem like they have the same sensibility as James Gunn, but I think they trust him when it comes to comic book choices because that's supposed to be his whole thing. But I would point out and say, you know, there are different types of comic book readers. And, you know, there are actually not a lot of comic book readers. Comic books, you know, are not a huge industry. And have never have been. Hey, H. Hadley, welcome back. Jamie says, do you think he is forbidden to use the main characters? Part of me will always feel that he's holding out, that maybe he can convince Matt Reeves. I will stop believing that when he casts a Batman. I don't know why he's dragging his feet on this. He even has a director. I wish he would cast a Batman and at least settle that. And I think, you know, maybe he's a little bit concerned about the Gal Gadot situation with Wonder Woman. Rena, I'm glad you enjoyed my Wonder Woman casting video. I had a lot of fun making it. But I think it's a mistake. You know, I think it's because another reason is that he doesn't want to deal with the fans of, you know, Henry Cavill. Well, he is dealing with Henry Cavill fans, but, you know, I think he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. And I think he's his cake, the fans' cake. He just, you know, it's just a very bad situation. You know, I don't see really strong, decisive decisions being made. And that's really important. That's what the head of a franchise is supposed to do. Let's see here. And then Poke says they are just doing what they've already been adopted before. You want new characters? Yeah, but do you want like Swamp Thing and these new characters? Also, like, I don't think, you know, Penguin's certainly not a new character. They had the whole Gotham show on Fox focused around Penguin. And yet everybody was thrilled with that, you know. All right. Okay, I think we can go on to the next story. Okay, hold on. That's right, Faye. We're not going to get Justice League until like 2042 at this point. It's taken forever. All right, story number 2. Where we go? Boop. Oh, wait. Boop, 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 boop. I'm trying to do the Mortal Kombat theme. Yeah, but that's, of course, extremely well known. All right, finish him. All right, so, yes, that's right. Mortal Kombat. It's coming faster than you might think. It's, in fact, coming out this October 24th, 2025, in IMAX. That's incredible. That's one of the reasons they say it's taken so long to get the film is that they were holding out for that sweet, sweet IMAX release window. That makes me wonder, you know, Warner Brothers is presenting at CinemaCon at the beginning of April. CinemaCon is a big industry presentation for movie theaters to try and get movie theaters excited about the upcoming movies that studios have because, you know, they want to make sure they can book a lot of screens, get those sweet, sweet locations for their marquee stands, lobby stands, things like that. But it's turned into a little bit of a media event as well. And so there are some major presentations there. I've heard that, you know, a couple of good trailers are going to drop. And I haven't heard that Mortal Kombat's going to drop. But usually when the posters come out and now these first look images, that means a trailer is not far behind. And so now at this point, CinemaCon is like 2 weeks away. I think there's a very strong chance you're going to get your first trailer for Mortal Kombat. What day does Warner Brothers present? They present on April Fool's Day, which is funny, but they present on Tuesday, April 1st. So I think there's a pretty good chance you're going to probably see a trailer there. All right, let's take a look at some of these first look images from Entertainment Weekly. All right, there's Carl Urban as Johnny Cage. And he's beardless, so you're like, what am I looking at? So that's funny. We've never seen Carl Urban's entire face without anything covered. You know, for Judge Dredd, he had the top half covered, okay? And then for the boys, he's had the bottom half covered. And now he's got the whole face out there. And so he used to have his whole face out there back in the day. I think the last time we saw that in a major movie, Dancing Dog 60, you beat me to it. That's right, Star Trek. That was the last time that he was his full face. And back then he was playing the Doc. It's been so long. That's right, McCoy. So I think that's pretty funny. And they said, you know, that's right. Who said that? Mystic says Johnny Cage fights ageism. That's hilarious. He has been fighting ageism. You know, a lot of people said he's too old to be Johnny Cage. But in this Entertainment Weekly article, they said that's going to be the whole storyline. That Johnny Cage is a washed-up, older action star trying to maybe, you know, that's one of the reasons he's so desperate enough to enter this crazy competition. But then when he finds out it's real, maybe he can save the world. I kind of like it. It's very much sounds like a Johnny Cage movie. And he looks great. And, you know, one of the things they talked about was that Johnny Cage creates like a really great character, you know. And I can't wait for him to do an American accent. That's right, Mika. It's going to be great. And, you know, like they said that he was really, that Carl Urban worked very hard to create his own Johnny Cage. And he was both very funny and very heartfelt. And, you know, by the way, Ed Boon did the interview with Entertainment Weekly. He's the only person really that they talked to at length. I think the director of the movie weighed in a little bit, but that's a big change because, of course, Ed Boon did not at all talk about the first movie when it came out. So I think the second movie might have hopefully everything going for it. Although, of course, there was all that MK1 drama. But Mortal Kombat fans are very loyal, so I think there's a decent, this movie actually has a pretty good shot, especially because it looks so good. Now, one other thing I want to point out is, well, let's do this first. Well, all right, we'll do it now. Speaking of Ed Boon, he tweeted out pictures of skins that the new game is going to have to celebrate the movie. And they give us some more information on some of the characters. Not this one. It doesn't even have Carl Urban's face. I guess you have to pay for that. But I wish that this one looked like Carl Urban. Poop. But anyway, I want to point out that Carl Urban, of course, is really hot stuff right now because of The Boys, right? Everybody loves Butcher. I'm a big Butcher fan. He's great on that show. He doesn't get enough credit. I mean, you know, he has to be the straight man to Anthony Starr's Joker, basically. You know, he's Batman to Joker. And Joker's like the flashier role. But, you know, I think Carl Urban's really important to balancing that out. But then also, I think I'll never forget the work that he did on Judge Dredd back in the day. All you could see was this guy's chin. And it was amazing. You know, his chin and his mouth. And he did some amazing lower face acting. So that's great. So I think that Johnny Cage looks fantastic. I love the blonde frosted tips. And I'm really excited to see what Carl Urban does here. Johnny Cage fights ageism is really funny. And I'm excited to see him win and beat the shit out of ageism. Okay, then the next one is Katana. This looks great. So here's Katana. This is Adeline Rudolph playing the role. She looks pretty fantastic. But an even better thing here is that if you look at this skin from the game, look at that. You can see that when the fans collapse, they become daggers. I think that looks really great. I wish that this photo emphasized that more. I think that looks really fantastic. I think she looks really, really good. Really good. Really good. I mean, I think that these two, this looks really game accurate. And I think, you know, much more so than the first film. The first film was okay. It certainly had some great moments. The Kano fight was my favorite in that opening sequence. But this is just really phenomenal. This looks really, really good. All right, then, well, first we got this look of Shao Kahn, okay? Ooh, he's extra crispy. Somebody left him in the oven for too long, or the fryer. So there he is, okay? He looks hilarious. But what's interesting to me is that when you look at the skin for the game, you can see the costume a little bit better, not in shadow. And you can see his skin, he's got like lizard skin, which I think is really cool looking. I think the character looks much cooler, in fact, in the game skin that was released. And so, this is just funny, this look. You're like, oh my God. But when you see it with the context, you're like, this looks really good. This looks very good as well. Now, unfortunately, I'm still not feeling the Scorpion look. Although, of course, this is now a multi-award winner as well. Hiroyuki Sanada from Shogun back as Scorpion. He looks like he's got a little more bling this time. Looks like he's got a little more bling. And then you can see this is how he's going to look in the game. And he kind of just looks like he's going to pick up his kid from school. Are you wearing a hoodie? Okay. All right. He looks like he's like in sweatpants running errands at the supermarket. So I'm not loving the Scorpion look. But yeah, he's going to be there. Although I have to say, in the article in Entertainment Weekly, they were like, oh, Hiroyuki Sanada off of all of his wins on Hulu's Shogun. And I was like, put some respect on Tasano's name. He won the Golden Globe for Shogun, thank you very much. And he, of course, plays Raiden. And he's going to be back as well. But they just stuck him in with a bunch of other actors' names. I was pretty appalled. I was like, where's Tasano's agent? Being like, you better put my Golden Globe win in that frickin' article. I was surprised that wasn't included there. I was like, hello? Okay. Now, something that I thought was really interesting was that they also said that they're going to be focusing, one of the things they wanted to do in the sequel was to have more female characters, which I find fascinating because so many people have complained about the lack of female characters in MK1. And in fact, I think this article would have trended. I think the trailer will trend. But that's right, Garnet Fire, if Jade had been in this first look. So Jade is going to be in this movie. People have been clamoring for Jade to be an MK1 since the game freaking came out. Melina is not dead. She's going to be in this movie as well. But I mean, I don't know. I think the casting for Melina didn't really work out. But anyway, Jade, I think, is a new character that is going to be played by Tati Gabriel. And I think that hopefully she's in the trailer. This is really going to get people excited. Now, unfortunately, Tati Gabriel is already fighting with fans over Intergalactic, the new Naughty Dog game, which she did the motion capture for. If I were her manager or agent, I'd be like, please don't fight with the gamers because you're starring in 2 video game projects. Intergalactic, and you're acting in the Mortal Kombat movie. So just let it go. Let it go. Who cares? That's right, she's going to be in The Last of Us Season 2 as well. But I'm a big fan of Tati Gabriel. I liked her in Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix. I think she's a wonderful actress. Also, if you look at her red carpet looks, she does some really interesting choices. So I think there's a chance that her Jade might be really fantastic. Chris, I'm sure she is being harassed by incels. I get harassed also, certainly not to the degree that unfortunately she did because she's in a much more high-profile game. But that's just being a woman on the internet, and there's just nothing you can do about it. So you don't, I wouldn't fan those flames. Don't give any new material. So I really want her to succeed. I think she's a great actress, and I really think that Jade is a fantastic, popular character. I want this to do well. But then, of course, that's right, Sindel. Queen Sindel is also going to be in here. There's the actress, Anathu Nujoy. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pronounce the name. She's from, I believe she's Vietnamese. She's going to be Sindel from the game, who is like a queen. Isn't she Shao Kahn's wife? Isn't she the missus? And she has like Rapunzel-style long hair that she can use to fight with. Also, apparently, glowing fists. I know a pretty good amount. Oh, thank you for the pronunciation tips there. I appreciate that. I know a pretty good amount about Mortal Kombat at this point, but I got to learn a little bit more about Sindel. Scores. I'm glad you stuck around, and I'm glad that you feel that stuff was incorrect. So I think that's very interesting to me, but I'm curious to see this trailer. I hope it is at CinemaCon. It's going to come extremely soon. If not at CinemaCon, it will be, really, I expect that trailer to drop at any time. Will they want it in front of Minecraft? It's like an R-rated adult movie. Maybe in front of Sinners. That's where I bet they put it. And that means that's even smarter to debut it at CinemaCon, which is right before Sinners hits theaters. These are all Warner Brothers projects. Yeah, I bet you that's when you're going to see the first trailer for this movie. Pretty exciting. I also wonder if they're going to have a Superman trailer at CinemaCon. I haven't heard anything about that. That's just a guess that I'm wondering about, because it has been 3 months since the last trailer. Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments about this? Okay. My favorite MK character, Garnet Fire? Let's see here. I like the female characters. I like Johnny Cage because I like the movie business stuff quite a bit, obviously. But I think I'm fascinated by how popular Melina is. Melina is incredibly popular. With the fandom. And that, to me, I find very interesting, and what she stands for. And so to me, I think that is something I would want to explore more. Hey, PM. Thanks for joining. Mr. Andrews, is Johnny Cage the lead character of the movie? Well, according to Entertainment Weekly, he is the entryway character, from his POV. So that's how he's going to be utilized, which I think is really interesting. I think it's a great choice. Everybody loves Karl Urban, particularly with the boys. I mean, he makes me more excited about the film. And they said Kano will find a way to come back, because it's Kano. Of course he's going to find a way to come back. Yeah, Sarko, Louis Tan has become a little bit of a better actor, but I don't like him taking up time from... It's an ensemble cast, an ensemble. We don't need to be wasting time on... Scorpion's Nepo baby. Whew, they're everywhere, even in fiction. All right. Let's see. Dory says, it's Mortal Kombat. Most characters die a minimum 5 times. That's right, because, basically it's hell. They come back. Yeah, Jax is in it. You can see him in the back of the Karl Urban shot. Where is he? He's got his metal arms and everything. So that's pretty great. Dancing Dog 60. Louis Tan can do martial arts in real life, which is very nice. But, I don't really see him doing any great martial arts in the movies. Like, if he was doing incredible action sequences, like at a John Wick level, I'd be like, we got to keep the guy. Look what he can contribute action-wise. But I don't see any impressive fighting coming from him. Okay. See, Damus is like, yeah, Karl Urban. Zeke says, oh, Zeke, you changed your profile picture. Can Mortal Kombat 2 save Warner Brothers if Superman flops? No, because obviously if Superman is a flop, it would completely take out DC, which is a cornerstone of Warner Brothers. But, we don't know if Superman's going to flop, obviously. The jury, of course, is still out on that. But Mortal Kombat is a very big cash cow. Mortal Kombat isn't a support pillar for Warner Brothers, but it's like some very nice decoration. There are different types of franchises, and some are workhorses. They're not particularly flashy necessarily, although I think Warner Brothers is doing more and more with Mortal Kombat. But Mortal Kombat, very dependable for Warner Brothers, and they are giving it more attention, which I think is really nice. The animated movies were very successful. Danny, that's interesting. Mortal Kombat has its fans, but not many casuals. That's interesting. It has a lot of fans, though. People love Mortal Kombat. Like, really. Like, I remember they had a Mortal Kombat event, and they had a tattoo parlor, and some people actually got tattoos of Mortal Kombat. can you imagine, like, for instance, if you'd gotten like a Snyderverse tattoo or an MCU tattoo, you'd be like, how do I get tattoo removal? You know, but I mean, like, for Mortal Kombat, people have those tattoos and they love them, and they never go out of style, because NetherRealm is very dependable and very protective of the of that franchise. Maybe that's what saves Mortal Kombat. You know, there isn't some studio executive in charge of it. It's Ed Boon. That's very interesting. I think that's a big part of the success of that franchise. Okay. Speaking of video games, let's go to another video game franchise, which is getting a reboot. That's right, time to boop, Jamie. All right, here we go. Here it comes. Boop. All right, Resident Evil. The time has come for Resident Evil to get rebooted. Oh my goodness, they sure made a lot of them though. These are the Resident Evil movies. Not only did they create family times for Milla Jovovich and her husband, Paul W.S. Anderson, not to be confused with Paul Thomas Anderson, thank you very much, who's actually also married to a famous actress, Maya Rudolph, I believe, right? But anyway, Milla Jovovich, I think she met her husband making these movies, and it really was talk about foundational support. You know, this has upheld Milla Jovovich's career over the years. She always had a Resident Evil movie coming up. That's interesting, Junior. You say if she's not in these movies, you're not going to be interested. That's interesting. Let's do a poll. Does Milla Jovovich need to be in a Resident Evil movie? That's fascinating to me. Can you make a Resident Evil without Milla Jovovich? Sure can. No. Blasphemy. I trust Zach Cregger. And then I don't care about these movies. No, not, oh no, I think we'll do please do. Okay. And then not sure, but I trust Zach Cregger. Okay. By the way, anyone can vote in a poll. You don't have to be a member to vote in a poll. Anyone can. You'll be very happy, musical lawyer, because that's funny, because you can see that we are going to get what they claim that it's going to be by West the Best more. They claim that they're going to be more accurate. But yes, so you guys can vote in that. All right, so they're going to redo these movies. So this is a very interesting, actually pretty interesting conversation in my opinion. I mean, like, they had Mortal Kombat movies back in the day, very successful actually, the first one. But they didn't stick around, whereas they've made, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 Resident Evil movies. That's a lot of movies. So very, very successful. So Zach Cregger is apparently what has made this package hot in Hollywood. He, of course, rose to fame with Barbarian. This was a movie that had one of those twist endings. Well, it was twist throughout the movie, and it was very good. I really liked the movie. I thought, I didn't love Barbarian, but I respected it, and it got a lot of attention. It was, in fact, so successful, or at least got so much attention within Hollywood, and, fans and the press liked it so much that he got this upcoming Warner Brothers Weapons movie. Pedro Pascal was supposed to be in it, but yes, Pedro Pascal, in conflict with what we're seeing, can't be in everything, and he had to drop out of Weapons. So I gotta tell you, Pedro Pascal didn't work for a very long time, and I think he's saying yes to everything because he doesn't know when he might go back to that. So I can understand the choices that Pedro Pascal is making. I think you're looking at someone who didn't become successful until like way late in their career, and I think that, let Pedro Pascal make his money. So he had to drop out of this though, and so Josh Brolin replaced him, and Julia Garner is also in the film. Nobody knows what Weapons is about. It's for Warner Brothers. It's apparently testing insanely well, but Warner Brothers has yet to date it. It does not have a release date yet. But the fact that Barbarian was successful with fans and that Weapons is testing so well is what has made Zach Cregger very hot. Even though Zach Cregger has yet to deliver a big budget success, a blockbuster with lots of box office, Hollywood's taken a gamble on him. They feel that the odds are good. He also was a producer on Companion, which I thought was an excellent movie. Very, very strong film. And so Zach Cregger, he's percolating. I wouldn't give him a ton of money, but I would bid on this. And that's exactly what happened. So let's go with the story. So what happened is that Constantine Film has the rights. They have the film rights to Resident Evil, and they're the ones who can decide to make movies. And they were like, we're going to do a reboot. And they signed Zach Cregger, and they said, all right, everybody. And they went out with a pitch to studios, and they said, Zach Cregger promises he's going to make a movie that is faithful to the source material. One second. He wants to make a movie that's very faithful to the source material. It's going to go back to being what Resident Evil is supposed to be. Let's see what the poll says. All right, so 33% of you would like to get rid of Milla Jovovich. 32% of you don't care about these movies, which is why you don't want to give Zach Cregger a lot of money. They make money if you keep the budget small. 20% of you think it would be blasphemy to get rid of her. That's not a lot. Maybe, I don't know. 33 want to get rid of her entirely. Part of me would give her maybe one cameo. And then 13% of you are not sure about it, but you trust Zach Cregger. So that's the results on that. It doesn't look good for Milla Jovovich based on those numbers. So anyway, this was such a hot package that in January it created a bidding war. Now, what's a bidding war? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, but just so you know, it's when, you don't have a deal, you don't have a first look deal. Now, a lot of companies and producers have first look deals, and they have to offer it to the studio that pays for their operating expenses, gives them an office, pays for some employees, gives them a small budget to buy source material with, the rights to. Then usually you have to go to that person and say, do you want to make this? And if they say no, then you can shop it around to somebody else. Thank you, Devon. But sometimes people don't have any deals, like obviously Constantine Film with Resident Evil. So they go out to everybody and they say, who wants it? That's what Ryan Coogler did with Sinners. They say, who wants it? They put together a package, a pitch, usually through their agency. The agency will sometimes package it even down to the actors. They're usually all represented by the same agency. That's one of the reasons that packaging has become a little bit of a problem within the industry, because you can't get into someone's package if you're not in that agency, and so people get a little bit frustrated. But anyway, this has not been cast yet, but it went out. It was a bidding frenzy. Everybody wanted it because of Zach Cregger. I think it was also because it was a good pair with Resident Evil. But anyway, just the other day, Sony won. Thank you, Maria, for gifting a membership. Just the other day, Sony won. Now, Sony, and they're so happy about the movie, they've already dated it. They put it on September 18th, 2026. What's the benefit to dating a movie far in advance? Well, you want to claim that weekend. You want to go, shoo-shoo, other movies. Don't come near my weekend. I've claimed this for Resident Evil. Now, the reason they wouldn't date Weapons is that Weapons is not a big movie. It's not a franchise film. It doesn't have any big stars in it. Weapons is counter-programming. Weapons can open whatever it wants. Weapons can open when another movie does. So Warner Brothers can put it wherever they want, whenever they want, because they're not, Weapons isn't the type of movie to own a weekend. But, Resident Evil is. Mystic points out, I didn't think of that, Mystic. That's a good point. This is 1 week after Clayface. Okay. That's very interesting. 1 week after Clayface. Since Clayface is a low-budget horror movie, I think this makes them very similar. So that makes me a little nervous, in fact, for both movies. I think they cannibalize each other a little bit. If I were both parties, I wouldn't like being so close to each other. Sony must have very little faith in Clayface. Now, Sony released the original films, which I think is one of the reasons that they wanted to get this film so much so. But it's not only that they released the original films, but I think you're seeing an overlap of, pop culture content coming out of Japan. Capcom is the company that makes Resident Evil, they're out of Japan. Video games, anime, very popular in Japan, obviously. And Sony is a Japanese company. The parent company is Japanese. So maybe they think that Resident Evil might be a big global play. And so that could be really nice for them. And then also, of course, it's a really nice kind of full circle situation in that the original game in 1996, obviously you can play Resident Evil on a number of platforms these days, but it originally was a PlayStation game. PlayStation. So it's really smart, and I'm sure that they're going to want to have a PlayStation game to maybe correlate with this new movie. Well, it takes a very long time to make video games, so that's probably not possible. But still, I think that you're starting to see a really nice kind of synergy come together, and I think this looks really good. The other thing that's really great is that they're taking it from Screen Gems. Screen Gems is the division of Sony that released all these movies. And Screen Gems does like the horror, low budget stuff. Now these movies weren't really cheap to make, but they're putting this one with Columbia Pictures, with the main part of Sony, which I think is phenomenal. So anyway, they're doing that. And also because it's going to be with Columbia, they can have an even bigger budget than they would if it was for Screen Gems. So this is like a real movie now. I think for a long time, Resident Evil movies were just one of those video game adaptations, to be fair, how the first Mortal Kombat movie felt, the one that recently just came out. But, this new Mortal Kombat movie to me feels more like a movie. And I think that's what they want to do with Resident Evil. They want Resident Evil not just to be fans for fans of the video game, of which there are obviously plenty, but I think they want to create something that even casuals will be, this is for me. And it's going to start from zero. It's a reboot. So you're going to have a situation, casting, Jamie, casting will be crucial. I don't know if they're going to do the male and female police people like, detectives like they have in the game. But I think, there was a big Alice in Wonderland theme with the movies. But Sophie Thatcher is an interesting choice. That's a very good choice. And they already know her, right? Julia Garner's like, well, wait a minute. Although she's also the Silver Surfer already. That's right, Ricardo. The Resident Evil movies were very profitable, but that's part of the reason because they were lower in budget. The downside to getting a bigger budget is that the bar is higher for how much you have to deliver. So, be careful what you wish for, Zach Cregger. You have yourself a real movie, which means you have to deliver real box office, which is terrifying, especially, again, for someone who never has. All right, so what is everybody, any questions or comments about this story? B. Brown says, I don't care who they cast as long as the story and production is high quality. Well, you might not. Well, let's see who they cast. You can always find a hot new star that maybe captures people's attention. Dancing Dog 60, I like your comparison to the recent Alien film. I like seeing new filmmakers emerge, a new class of filmmakers. Fede Alvarez, Zach Cregger. I mean, you don't have to always keep going back to the same old, same old. Obviously you like those directors as well, but I think it's exciting. Faye says, we need beefcake. You need the beefcake. I think even Cregger understands that to a degree, which is why he wanted Pedro Pascal for weapons, and I don't think that Josh Brolin is an appropriate, I don't think he's an appropriate replacement. I don't think he achieves the same thing. I will say that Pedro Pascal is very close to being overexposed, though, which I feel bad about because I understand where he's coming from. But, it never hurts to take a small break and count your money. Hopefully after this chunk he's done for a little bit, although this is going to take so long because now he's Mr. Fantastic. But it's hard. I think Pedro Pascal is definitely considered Beefcake Scores, for sure. Well, Jamie, that's interesting. Pedro Pascal, this is a side note. We got stuck on Pedro Pascal, but I will say that this is another issue. Not only did Pedro Pascal release a trailer today, but he was in an Apple commercial which Spike Jonze directed. And so to release both those things on the exact same day, I think is one of the things that adds to the feeling of being overexposed. Also, he's not a chameleon. He always looks the same, which is great because that's what a movie star does. But, you can't be everywhere. It's hard. It's tough. Paulie wants to point out that faithfulness isn't everything. because Welcome to Raccoon City was a disaster. Well, Zach Cregger, I got to tell you, I don't know if he's going to make a successful film, but I think it would be almost impossible for him to make a bad film. I think Zach Cregger is a good filmmaker. '80s model says, do you think 80 million would be a good budget for the first movie, or too high? Too high. I guess I'd want to talk to Zach Cregger about what he was going to spend it on, but I'd be like, I'm not going to lie, Zach, if you could bring this in around 60. Let's see what the original Resident Evil movies' budgets were. Let me look this up. Okay. All right, the first Resident Evil movie which was made in 2002, over 20 years ago, was made for $33 million. Wow. I sure like that. If I were a producer, I'd be like, I love you, Paul W.S. Anderson. I can't believe you delivered that movie for that little bit of money. The next one was made for $45 million. Let's look at the last one. The final chapter was made for $40 million. Wow! I gotta tell you, these Resident Evil movies look really good for how little money they have on them. I definitely would cap them at 60. I'd be like, I gave you an additional $20 million. And you've worked with very small budgets in the past. I'm not, that's right, Mystic. Maybe around 50. I wouldn't go above 60. Maybe I'd give them up to 60 for VFX work. But Zach Cregger doesn't need to jump that much further from what are the budgets on Barb? He's making like $10 million, $5 million movies here, and they look great. Yeah, but Sarko, it was $40 million for the last one. Let's see here. LT Brain says, Welcome to Raccoon City wasn't accurate or faithful at all. It was just names and visuals. Okay. And then Davey says, I want a faithful adaptation. It wouldn't need too high of a budget to do it faithfully. Let's see what they decide to do. But I think this is a good package, and hopefully they didn't spend too much money on it. Alrighty. But I probably would be reluctant to open. I have to say, with Zach Cregger and the Resident Evil brand, I would be reluctant to open opposite it. All right, so it's Q&A time, baby. All righty, so 10 minutes till 4:47. You can ask me anything that you would like. Chico says, what are your thoughts on the Adolescence miniseries with the amazing buzz that it has? The new baby reindeer? I did see that. And I saw the buzz, and I, in fact, kind of scrubbed through it a little bit just last night because I was seeing the buzz on Twitter. I'm a little insulted that everybody's making such a big deal about the long take and everything when I'm like, the Menendez brothers just did this as well. I thought it was okay. I thought that it was trying, to me, the show seems to be trying to have its cake and eat it too. Clearly, it's trying to talk about incel culture, speaking of incels, but I thought that it really pulled its punches, and I think that was hard to understand unless you read somebody telling you what the show was supposed to be about. And so I kind of didn't like the show for that, what I saw of the show for that reason. I did like the acting, though. All right, let's see here. Oh, Travis also asked about Adolescence. Thank you. President Progressive says, Ricardo says, when are you seeing Snow White? I unfortunately have a conflict that came up, so I can't make the press screening today. I feel really bad about it, but I am going to see it as soon as it drops on Thursday, and I'm still going to do all the coverage that I usually do, but it'll just be Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and stuff like that. President Progressive says, Grace, I'll be on vacation in Tokyo soon and plan to go to both Disneyland and Disney Sea on 2 consecutive days. First time Disney for me. And first time ever going to Disney? Well, those are incredible parks in Tokyo, so I can't wait for you. You're going to have a wonderful time. I hope it's not too crowded. David says, why didn't they make a Lily Potter series starting from when she was a Hogwarts student, building to the final season where she's... I don't... In today's culture, I don't know if I would make a Lily Potter series, to be honest with you, and particularly because, J.K. Rowling and her real women comments all the time, I'd be like, we don't need to lean into that. And also, I think people are tired of prequels because we always know where they're going to end up, so it kind of takes away some of the excitement. I really feel Hogwarts Legacy was the way to go, and it's ridiculous that they didn't do that. Oh, look at all these wonderful questions. Thank you, everybody. Let's see here. B. Brown, I will review Sinners for sure. Let's see here. H. Hadley says, do you believe the general public and the core fans would also support a complete reboot of the Saw franchise, given the report that came out yesterday? I'm not a Saw fan, H. Hadley. I think those movies are played out. I think it's just been a little bit too many of them. So either way, I think they need to take a break. Dancing Dog 60 says, Grace, have you seen the State Farm Batman ads? Is there more than one? I've only seen the one, and I loved it. It was incredible. If there's more than one, I'm going to be very happy. Thank you, Danny. Oh, Danny also asked about Adolescence. I'm glad so many of you are enjoying it. I think it's nice that it's just 4 episodes. I think that helps it. Green Lantern's Light says, how about Gabriel Basso as Leon? I think that would be a good match. Are you talking about Resident Evil? I'm not a big Resident Evil fan, so I don't know who any of these characters are. I'll have to look into it. But, you know, isn't he, you're talking about him from The Night Agent, right? That's actually a very good choice and a very affordable one. Maria says, how do you think a new rogue should enter the MCU? Stealing Captain Marvel's powers? You can't do that because, unfortunately, you're just going to have everybody in the audience cheering, and that's going to be really a bad look. So I think she's going to have to, I don't know, suck on a infinity stone. I don't know. I'd be like, it's going to have to happen some other way. Nico, I've seen one more episode of The White Lotus than you, and then we'll all be on the same page and we can discuss it. Although it's so out there that I don't know how I can do it on a public space like YouTube. I'd probably have to just keep that conversation on Twitter. Zeke says, does the Resident Evil reboot mean that Underworld will get rebooted as well? I don't know. I mean, they're similar, but they're not the same thing by any means. Underworld certainly was, I'm sure, a pitch on how we could do our own Resident Evil. But again, how do you do Underworld without Kate Beckinsale? Gunnar says, I heard they were possibly doing a Wicked expansion at Epic Universe. Could this be true? I'm sure they're having those discussions. I'm sure that they are. They've already announced that they're going to aggressively expand Epic Universe and are already planning new aspects to it. But I think, let's see, I think they want to wait. I think they want their Oscars for Wicked. And so they're going to really protect Wicked Part 2 to make it seem as prestige a movie as possible. 80s Model, I am doing a spoiler review for Severance. Thank you very much. I watched the episode yesterday. I'm writing the script out. I did my notes late last night. I was doing some St. Patrick's celebrating yesterday, so it threw off my schedule a little bit. I'm not Irish, but I like the holiday. There will be a Severance spoiler review for sure. Thanks, Paul. Oh, I'm so glad so many Severance fans are here. I think you're going to like the finale. I mean, it was a little frustrating, but the more I think about it, the more I like it. Let's see here. That's right, Ben 10. They could have done The Cursed Child from Harry Potter. They could have done that as well. But I would like a new story where we don't know the ending. MM92 says, hi, Grace. Should Disney pause from doing more remakes? Well, let's see how Snow White does. I think, you can't really have that conversation until you actually see the numbers. I mean, it's not looking good, but let's see. PMM, I don't know why your super chat isn't working. There might be a word that you're using that I have blocked. Garnet Fire says, any advice for someone interested in the movie industry but can't afford to move to a major city? That's an interesting question, Garnet Fire. Well, I think that are there any productions being filmed around you anywhere at all? Like anywhere that's in a commutable distance. You could try that, see if that's possible. Try to maybe speak to whoever your local film commission is and see who's applying for permits. They shoot a lot of places these days, so you're probably maybe near somewhere. But otherwise, it's tough about, having to move, without being able to move. But that would be the first thing I would maybe try and see if you can do that. Oh, Celestine, I hope you're feeling better. Oh, that's great. Have fun, Elliot. It's Snow White, that's great. Let's see here. What am I having for, oh, thank you, Dory. What am I having for dinner? Who asked me that? I'm having a delicious, like burrito salad. It's very good. It's very healthy. They make it somewhere here in the city. You can get it to go. It's got tortilla chips and like cheese, but also chicken and a lot of lettuce and tomato and some guacamole because avocado is so good for you. It's delicious. Delicious, delicious, delicious. Oh, Ryan Palms asked that. Thank you, Ryan. Oh, MJC, I don't drink, so I didn't have a drink yesterday. I drank some iced tea, my favorite drink of choice. I just drink iced tea and water these days. Occasionally I'll sneak a Diet Coke, but you're not really supposed to drink Diet Coke. It's really bad. All soda's bad for you. I'm trying to stop. So I just drink water and iced tea. That's right, Mr. Andrews. I picked up some St. Patrick's Day cookies, which I tweeted about, and they were not as good as they looked, I'm sorry to say, but they were beautiful. Atmosphere, I'm glad you discovered another show with Apple TV, even though you just got it for Severance. There are so many good shows on Apple TV. I hope you keep that subscription. Let's see here. That's right, Poke. Daredevil's on tonight. Oh, it's bad news when nobody remembers your show's on. Yep, at 9 o'clock tonight, we're going to have another episode of Daredevil. We'll see what happens. We'll see who shows up. Boy, they sure need Punisher to show up. I hope Punisher shows up tonight. Heinz E. Adventures. Why are you saying Atlanta? Because Atlanta is a wonderful place, obviously, for the film industry. Garnet Fire, I'm so glad my advice was helpful to you. Mike says, Grace, why hasn't Spider-Man 4 moved its release date? It did. It moved it back 1 week, which I don't think is enough, but at least it's something. Oh, that's right, Heinz Adventures. I'm kind of doing Taco Tuesday. I didn't even think of that. That's funny. That's right, I am doing Taco Tuesday, just as a salad. Yum. No, you got to be healthy. Morphs, Diet Coke is bad for you because of the chemicals in it, and they have done some studies that it adds to blocking your arteries, the stuff that's in Diet Coke. So I imagine it's in all diet sodas, so I really shouldn't be drinking diet soda. It's hard to quit, though. That's right, Dancing Dog 60. Aspartame is not good for you. Score is I did not watch Electric State. Xenomorph, I do think fighting is very crucial to Mortal Kombat. They said there's going to be more of the tournament this time, so hopefully that is a big thing. Ray Skymonker says, Grace, what are your thoughts on re-releases being a thing now and more successful than being some new movies? I think it's great. I've actually seen some older films in theaters and the audience is really engaged and nobody's on their phone because they really want to be there. I actually think it's really nice, and I hope that it's a great way to experience movies. Let's see here. Did I get this question? Oh, LT Brain says, the people who want Mila aren't Resident Evil game fans. That's like asking a Fox X-Men movie come back. Oh, I don't know. I'm an X-Men fan, and I would like the Fox X-Men to come back. Okay. Oh, I'm over my time. I had a lovely time talking to you, as always. Live streams this week will be, it's today, Wednesday, and then I'm going to have one, I believe on Friday as well. So lots of stuff coming up. I'll talk to you soon. Thursday. Not Thursday. So it'll be tomorrow, Thursday earlier in the day, and then my Snow White coverage will begin. Okay, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.